Welcome back to NPA Discovery, the place where we dive deep into the lives of music legends, uncovering the truths behind the melodies, and sharing stories that echo through time. If you're passionate about music history, unforgettable voices, and stories that inspire, even through heartbreak, then you're in the right place. Today's video explores a legend with one of the most hauntingly beautiful voices ever heard, a man whose life was shaped by unimaginable loss and redemption, and whose artistic journey reveals a powerful lesson about persistence, grief, and soul. Roy Orbison, the tragic love, shocking connections, and enduring voice of rock's most mysterious legend. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support fuels our passion to keep producing stories that move, challenge, and inspire. Let's take a deep breath and step into the life of Roy Orbison, a tale of brilliance overshadowed by sorrow, yet elevated by grace. Born of dust and dreams. Roy Orbison wasn't born into fame, luxury, or promise. He came into the world on April 23, 1936, in Vernon, Texas, at a time when the Great Depression still lingered like a ghost. His parents, Orby Lee Orbison, a rough-handed oil field worker, and Nadine Vesta Schultz, a creative woman who wrote poetry and painted, crafted a home that blended hard reality with fleeting beauty. It was his mother's quiet artistry and his father's determined pragmatism that planted the seeds of Roy's identity. At just 6 years old, Roy received a guitar from his father, perhaps a modest gift, but one that would ultimately birth a musical revolution. While other boys chased footballs and trouble, Roy chased chords. And that shy, thick-glassed little boy found his escape in strings and sound. His voice. Even he didn't think much of it. Too thin, he once said. But those around him knew better. Even at 9, he was winning singing contests on local radio. Soon, he had his own radio show. But Roy was never one to boast. He was introverted to the point of near invisibility, often keeping his emotions locked behind sunglasses and silence. From Wink to the world. Roy spent much of his youth in Wink, Texas, a tiny town with dusty roads and few dreams. But from that unlikely place, he would form his first band, the Wink Westerners. They played country and western swing music, chasing dance gigs and local acclaim. The moment of realization came when they earned $400 for a single performance, a small fortune in their world. That night, something clicked in Roy. Music wasn't just a passion. It could be a profession. While he started as a guitarist, it was his singing that caught attention. His decision to focus on vocals at 15 was pivotal. He didn't have the rugged growl of Johnny Cash or the swagger of Elvis, but his voice held a rare, aching vulnerability. This duality, of fragility and control, would become his trademark. At the same time, Roy pursued college, enrolling in North Texas State to study geology. He imagined a practical life in the oil fields if music didn't pan out. But the success of his friend Pat Boone ignited a new fire in him. Maybe this dream wasn't so far-fetched after all. The birth of the Teen Kings and the birth of a vision. In 1955, Roy formed the Teen Kings. Their breakout song, Ooby Dooby, started as a regional success and eventually brought them to Sun Records, the legendary label that launched Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, and Jerry Lee Lewis. But the alignment was rocky. Sun Records wanted a rockabilly version of Roy. They wanted a swaggering heartthrob who could mimic Elvis. Roy, however, dreamed of ballads, of deep, soaring love songs that captured the fragile core of human emotion. The conflict was inevitable. When Sun Records started branding them as Roy Orbison and the Teen Kings, the band revolted. They saw Roy as self-centered, possibly even egotistical. The group disbanded. Roy was alone. Claudette, motorcycles, and the making of a legend. Roy's life was about to change again. Not just musically, but personally. He married Claudette Frady, a vibrant 16-year-old he'd met years earlier. They quickly started a family and tried to build a stable life in the chaos of a music career. And amid this, Roy's professional luck changed. Thanks to a publishing gig and help from producer Fred Foster, Roy signed with Monument Records and began writing songs with Joe Melson. Their first major hit? Only the Lonely. A song drenched in longing and isolation. It was rejected by the Everly Brothers. Elvis Presley passed on it. But when Roy recorded it, the world paused to listen. Suddenly, that delicate falsetto, so once ridiculed, was hauntingly beautiful. The hits came in rapid succession: Blue Angel, Running Scared, and most famously, Oh, Pretty Woman. That last song, inspired by a real conversation with Claudette, would become Roy's most iconic anthem. But life behind the scenes wasn't as magical. Fame, affairs, and the crash that shattered it all. Roy's touring schedule was relentless. His fame soared, but his marriage suffered. Claudette, lonely and increasingly suspicious, discovered Roy's infidelity. In retaliation, she had her own affair, devastating Roy. Their marriage crumbled but was briefly patched together when their third son Wesley was born. Yet fate can be cruel. On June 6, 1966, Roy and Claudette were riding motorcycles, a shared hobby they picked up after spending time with Elvis Presley, who had encouraged the thrill. While riding home, Claudette was struck by a pickup truck. She died on the spot. At only 25. Roy was shattered. His muse, his love, and his constant was gone. The final verse, Roy Orbison's last days and the voice that refused to die. Even as the world had once again begun to recognize Roy Orbison's greatness, the man himself was nearing his final curtain call. By the end of the 1980s, Roy was on the verge of a second golden age. His voice, unchanged, ageless, and as captivating as ever, was being rediscovered by a whole new generation. Collaborations with the Traveling Wilburys had reignited public fascination, and Roy, who had once wandered through the shadows of fame, was now basking in a long-overdue spotlight. But life, in its cruel symmetry, had one last stanza to play. The making of Mystery Girl. Roy had begun working on what would unknowingly become his farewell album, Mystery Girl. In the studio, surrounded by a dream team of collaborators like Jeff Lynne, Tom Petty, and Bono, Roy poured everything he had left into each track. The result was something unlike anything else, an album that was both nostalgic and futuristic, haunting yet hopeful. One track, She's a Mystery to Me, co-written by Bono and The Edge of U2, perfectly captured Roy's mystique. That voice, half shadow, half light, felt eternal. Fans who heard early previews knew something special was brewing. And so did Roy. For the first time in decades, he was not just a remembered icon, he was relevant again. The final days, a life lived at full volume. But Roy was also exhausted. He was juggling international interviews, recording sessions, and performances, all while ignoring the silent warnings of his body. His family and friends noticed the change: headaches, shortness of breath, chest pains. But Roy refused to slow down. It's hard to say whether it was pride, purpose, or simply his nature, but Roy Orbison lived full throttle until the very end. There was no soft fade out. He burned bright until the flame gave out. On December 6, 1988, Roy spent the evening visiting his mother in Tennessee. He laughed with her, smiled at his son Wesley, and took a moment to enjoy the quiet. Then he went to the bathroom. When he didn't come out after half an hour, his family checked on him. They found Roy collapsed on the floor. The man who had given the world so many tender songs about loss, love, and longing, was gone. He died from a heart attack. He was only 52 years old. Roy Orbison wasn't just a man with a beautiful voice. He was proof that real strength lies in vulnerability. He showed us that you could be shy, awkward, grieving, and still be magnificent. He proved that heartbreak doesn't mean you're broken forever. And his final album, Mystery Girl, became a stunning farewell. Released posthumously, it soared on the charts. The single, You Got It, reminded the world just how powerful Roy still was. It became one of the biggest hits of his entire career. What a triumph, what a way to say goodbye. The sound that still echoes. So what do we take from the story of Roy Orbison? That greatness doesn't always roar, it sometimes whispers in falsetto. That tragedy doesn't define you, your courage does. And that when the world forgets you, all it takes is one note, one song, one truth, to remind them who you really are. Roy's voice lives on. In vinyl grooves. In streaming playlists. In the hearts of every soul who has ever wept to, crying, danced to, oh, pretty woman, or found hope in the haunting hum of, in dreams. And maybe, just maybe, that's how legends are born. Not in the spotlight, but in the silence that follows, when their song refuses to fade. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and remember, behind every smile, there's a story worth telling.